All right, folks, it is Monday night. It is time for a live Q&A. So I see there's already a bunch of questions in here, but let's get situated. Have a seat, get comfortable. We do this every Monday night. We have a bunch of questions in the chat. So if you have a question, leave it in there. And then we have Jason in the back room that's going to be filtering through everything. We've got, as always, Ethan behind the controls over there, Bo and Ethan and Zach. And I think Tom is also in the back room looking for comments. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We have Thorwald Inspired that's here. Welcome, as always. Curtis Warren, I see a lot of familiar names. We have Richard Hooker. We had Dronecraft Productions. We have Bob Rock, Dave DeVore, Sergio de la Garza. Lunch is here, a little late. It's almost 4 o'clock, but that's okay. Jillian from the community. What's up, Jilly B? Jilly B. We have the Super 8mm 1. Scott Beautiful Photography, Videography, Dean Schaefer, Rick Hone. We have Nathaniel Hemrick, Drone Shots, Old Deadeye, Hike and Fly, James Cox, a bunch of people, Primal Drones. Welcome everyone. Northern Drone Guy is here, Sure Resource. I see a lot of familiar names, so I'm going to stop here, but thank you all for being here. I guess we should probably get started with the questions. Yeah, I see a lot of questions already about the drone ban, so we'll get to the bottom of that. Jilly B still better than the lady. That's right. Okay, Richard says, "Hello everyone, welcome back. How was your vacation? Did you go to any special places?" Good question. Yeah, I was out. If you didn't notice, last 2 weeks the guy that was here looked different. Thank you, Jason, for filling in on the community. Yeah, my parents came to visit actually, so that was fun. They hadn't been here in a while. They hadn't met one of my kid, my youngest, so that was cool for them to do that. Spend some time with the tribe. We did go a bunch of places. Went to Phoenix to visit. Went to Williams. Went to Flagstaff. Also went flying over the Grand Canyon on Friday. That was cool. They had never flown over the Grand Canyon. We had gone in the past to the edge of the rim on the north rim, but this time we got to fly south to north at 11,500, which is not that much higher than the top of the Grand Canyon. So you get a beautiful view, endless view. We were on the eastern side flying northbound on one of the corridors. If you're not familiar with the Grand Canyon, there's a bunch of corridors. You cannot go below 10,000 feet, 9,999, and then you have to kind of follow these corridors. There's a bunch of areas where you can't overfly at all. So that's cool. That was fun to it was fun to look at. The weather was interesting, kind of low ceiling, so I had to pay a lot of attention to flying rather than looking outside, but they got a good view, so they were excited. We came back through Sedona, so beautiful area that we live in. But thanks for asking. That was kind of my vacation, so I'm back kind of refreshed, which is good. Sometimes, when you have family in town, you need a vacation after the vacation, but I actually feel pretty refreshed. So next question, Rick says, "I'm working on my Part 107, but currently only flying recreationally. I registered my drone on Drone Zone as Part 107. If my drone starts flying my drone recreationally, does it need to register also?" Nope. The registration on the Part 107 is fine. So you have to keep in mind that registration is a Part 47 registration, so it's the same regardless if you do it under 107 or under Part 44809 in the FAA Drone Zone, so not an issue there. Rick has another question. He says, "Do you think Biden's proposal to ban Chinese software and hardware for EV could provide a bill that would allow the drone ban to be attached to and make it easier for the drone ban to get through?" That's a good question. I haven't really thought about that, but there are two different topics which I think have two different lobbies. So I don't see that happening. I haven't heard really anyone talking about that. So yeah, tough one. I hope not, but we'll see. Scott says, "I have a Mavic 3 Original. Mavic 3 Original, okay. Is it worth getting the Mavic 3 Pro?" I don't think so. Mavic 3 Original, if I remember correctly, has two lenses, right? It has the the wide, and then the 7X. It just doesn't have the 3X. I would say probably not, unless you find yourself missing the 3X. I do like the 3X, I have to admit. I think it's a good in-between. I always thought the 7X was a little too much zoom. The 3X provides something kind of in between. But if you don't use these zoom lenses, you won't see any difference in the wide angle. Primal Drone says, should we stop buying DJI now? Nope, not really. I want the Air 3S when it's released. No, I would definitely not stop. As a matter of fact, I mean, I live by the advice that I give. We just bought two Matrice 30. We just get them today, so I will continue to buy DJI. Even if they get banned, so far what we've seen is proposal for bans that are for new models, not existing ones. I don't think they can. Well, anyways, that's all I'm going to say. But yeah, no, I would not worry about that. Vic's here. 2 different accounts. Look at you. Next, Lunch says, what is the purpose of the 400-foot lens grid when the max you can fly is 400 foot anyway? Does it benefit ATC? Well, it's a great question. So the grids, regardless of the numbers, are designed to meet the requirements of the regulation. 107, I don't remember the number now, but one of the Part 107 regulation dictates that you need to get airspace approval when you fly in controlled airspace, Class B, C, D, or E primary to an airport, which is E2. So if you fly in one of those, you technically have to get approval from the FAA to do so. If there wasn't LANCE in place, then you would fly in there without getting approval. Technically, you would be against that piece of regulation. So it's a paperwork thing, if you want to think about it this way. So even though you're allowed to fly at 400 feet because it's controlled airspace, you need a mechanism in place to give you approval, and that's what LANCE does. 107.49, thank you. Oh, 41. Getting conflicting information, but it's 107.41 or 49 is one of those two that requires approval. But yeah, that's the reason. Where can you fly in suburban area such as Long Island? Are there enough fly zones to justify the costly purchase of a drone package? Long Island, I'm not that good with the New York geography, but I'm pretty sure Long Island has only a few parks where you're allowed to fly. Long Island is downtown New York City, right? Is that right? Anyone? Sorry, we're Western people. Somebody's gonna look it up. I'm pretty sure it's the main Long Island of New York City, right?
It's the area where they have all the tea.
The tea?
Long Island iced tea.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, sorry for the ignorance. But yeah, if that's the case, New York City has tough restrictions on flying drones, except for a few parks where you can fly. Sorry. I hope that helps. I'm sure I will see comments in a second smoking me on that answer. In the Man Bear Pig, Long Island is not New York City. Thank you, Vic. Well, shit then. Okay, well, we'll get to the bottom of that in a second. Somebody pulls up a map of New York City and Long Island and get me.
All of Suffolk County is restricted, but I can't verify that.
Okay, we'll get the info. In the FAA Part 107 exam, do we need to memorize abbreviations? Like, would they ask questions in abbreviations? No, first off, there will not be a question that says, what does VOR mean? Or what does LANCE mean? There's no such question. There are abbreviations like METAR and TAF and things like that, but I don't think there's anything that you need to memorize. That if you're doing the course, you'll get familiar with all of these terms to the point that if they show up, it's not going to be like a surprise. I hope that makes sense. Long Island is one of the 5 boroughs. Okay, all right. So if that's the case, Manhattan is downtown New York City. Long Island is separate. Thank you, James. I trust James' answer better than Vic, especially when Vic writes in all caps.
Oh, dang.
Just kidding. So yeah, it looks like in this case, if it's one of the boroughs, then I would say, let me reread that. Long Island is one of the 5 boroughs. Yeah. Downtown New York City, Long Island is separate. Anyways. Yeah, we'll see. All right. So yeah, I answered that previous question. Let's get back. Lou says, if you had your choice, what is the best laptop and software setup to do video editing? Oh boy. I mean, my choice would be a MacBook Pro or MacBook Air, depending on the level of sophistication that you want to get into. A MacBook Air is probably plenty enough. Anything with an M chip is going to be good enough. If you can go with the higher M chips, the Pro or the Max, then you'll have a laptop that can handle pretty much any kind of editing. And since you're on Mac, I would go with Final Cut Pro as the editing software. It's a one-time fee as opposed to Final Cut, as opposed to Adobe Premiere, which is a monthly fee, which also doesn't work nearly as well on Mac as Final Cut does. Final Cut was designed for Mac by Apple. If you don't want to go with Final Cut, I would go with DaVinci Resolve, which is also a one-time fee. They have a free version. They have a paid version that is also a one-time fee. Anything you can do to not have to pay Adobe over and over again, that's what I would do personally. But I would go for a Mac for anytime. I've been a Mac user before Macs were cool, so I can say that without too much bias.
And then if you are only getting a PC, anything with a good GPU, so that's usually a gaming laptop or anything that has the gaming sticker on it.
Okay, hold on. I'm still reading on Long Island.
I thought you were frozen.
No. Well, Ethan was talking. Okay. Brooklyn, Bronx, Queen are on Long Island. Long Island is not a borough. Jesus. Okay, people, get your information. Long Island is not downtown. It's across the Long Island Sound from Connecticut. It's very large. Okay, well, that doesn't answer my question. So if anybody lives in that area, please put the answer down because I don't want to give bad information. But from what it sounds like, there's probably still a whole lot of restrictions in there.
I think that there's only one way to see for sure, and I think we need to go
No.
as Pilot Institute.
Really? You guys want to go to New York?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We can go see Haya.
Yeah, where's Haya? Haya would know. Okay, Long Island has 2 counties which are not part of the 5 boroughs of New York City. It is not an urban setting. It's quite suburban. Okay, so maybe you can fly. I'm going to say I don't know. Jason, what do you say?
Part of the city is on Long Island.
Part of the city is on Long Island.
If you are in the city, you have to abide by the city rules.
Yes, if you're in New York City, you have to abide by.
Outside of those boroughs that are on Long Island, you're not bound by those rules.
Okay, so if you're outside of New York City, then the rules don't apply, which is correct. That's the way I understood it. So let's rephrase it this way. I don't care where Long Island is. New York City, no, I'm not saying this to be mean. New York City is where the restriction is. So if you live there, I'm sure you know where Long Island is, but New York City is where the restriction is, where you cannot fly except for a few parks. If you're outside of that, then you should be okay. Still look for airspace though, because there's a lot of airspace in that area. Whew. All right. Somebody says best laptop, Apple MacBook Pro M1. I have the Max, I think. Is the Max the next level?
I think you have the Ultra.
Yeah, I have the Ultra. I have the M1 Ultra, and I've had it pretty much since it came out, and it still performs like just amazingly. So I've had this thing for several years and been using it every single day. I can say that since I've had that laptop, I've used it every single day. Every single day. There is not a single day that I don't turn on that laptop, even on the weekends. And I do everything and anything. And I think I've restarted that laptop 5 times the whole time I've had it. So that should tell you how good it is. But yes, and yes, I did say Final Cut as the answer. Okay. Whew. Travis says, welcome back. Why is Skyio so obsessed with lobbying to ban DJI? And why can't they work on making the consumer drone and making them better when it comes to marketing? That's a great question. So there's been a lot of allegations of Skyio lobbying to have a ban. They've denied being involved with the Countering CCP Drone Act. I have to say that publicly because they've denied it. Now, whether it's true or not, you make your own decision there. But why the lobbying against DJI? Whether the Countering CCP is one thing, but we know they have people on staff that used to work for Stefanik. Now, all of a sudden, Stefanik is putting out bans against drones, DJI, so there is a link there. You cannot deny that. I don't think they can even deny that. Why would a company try to ban their biggest competitor? I think it's pretty obvious. Obviously, it's to get more room for them to grow and take that market. What's interesting is that they don't seem to have any interest in consumer drones, which is where DJI obviously makes a lot of their money. So I'm still a bit puzzled why they would want to remove a competitor that is in a space that they're not in. Quite frankly, they're not in the consumer market. They're in the enterprise market and the military market. DJI is not in the military market, so they're only really competing on the enterprise level. Police, fire department, mapping possibly, but they seem to be more interested in police, fire, EMS, and just public safety in general. So it's a bit of a head scratcher why you would want to take down an entire industry when you could be competing on the quality of product. So can you blame them for trying to take a competitor out when they have the ability to do so? I don't know that you can blame them. Is it ethical? Is it a good thing? No, it's definitely not. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say, but that's just kind of my understanding of this whole thing. The Truth Guy says, Mini 4 Pro or Mavic 3 Classic? Ooh, good question. Which one would you recommend for a hobbyist flyer? I would say Mini 4 Pro, quite frankly. Mavic 3 Classic is missing something. Only has one lens, one camera in it, one sensor. Mini 4 Pro is going to be more nimble, easier to travel, to carry along. I don't know that you're going to see much of a quality of image difference, although you might. The Mavic 3 Classic has a 4/3 sensor. We have not really seen great details in the pictures of the Mavic 3 Classic when we tested it in-house. Now, whether or not we had a dud or lemon, I don't know, but we weren't really impressed with the image quality. So I would say Mini 4 Pro, quite frankly, unless you want to spur for something a bit more like the Mavic 3, which has two lenses. Now you have access to a zoom lens as well. But I would go with the Mini 4 Pro. It's such a great package. The image quality is amazing. I don't know that you would notice a big difference between the two as far as image quality. And it's sub 250, which you're right. Yep, sub 250, which means if you're flying recreationally, you don't need remote ID, you don't need registration. So yeah, that's a big plus. Thanks for mentioning that, Ethan. Scott says, I'm planning on getting the parachute for the Mavic 3, but I don't know if I should wait for the next drone. You know, you can always wait for the next drone, but at one point you gotta just fly. We used to say the best camera you have is the one you have in your hand. Well, the best drone you have is the one you have in your hand. So the Mavic 3 is not going to be obsolete anytime soon. Image quality is amazing, and I think it's going to be a while before we see a Mavic 4, but I'm saying this and we starting to see rumors about a Mavic 4, but the pictures are pretty pixelated, so according to my my rules, it's still pretty far out. We'll see. Minut says, Jason and the rest of the gang did a great job filling for you. Yes, they did. Welcome back. Thank you. They did. I only looked in like twice. I came in live for like 5 minutes last week to make sure everything was on, and then I saw both of them sitting here, and then I left. That was good. trying to get a reaction from Ben. Okay. Rick says, do you still have to register your UAS if you are flying in a FRIA? Ooh, interesting. Or does the FRIA only satisfy the remote ID requirement? The FRIA only satisfies the remote ID requirement. So you still have to register your drone. You still have to follow all of the other rules. You still can't fly over people. If it's in airspace, you still need to get airspace approval. All of that good stuff. But yes. Yes. I want to go back to the previous question about the parachute because Vic made a really good point. The next drone will not have an ASTM approved parachute for a while because they'll have to do testing first. So that's a very good point, Vic. Thank you. Jason says, do I need my Part 107 for using thermal imaging drone for coyote predator location for our ranch? Good question. So that's, to me, more than flying recreationally using the drone. Now you have a bit of a purpose for it. So I would say the spirit of what the FAA put out, the exemption that they put out for recreational flying, is based on the fact that you do a fully recreational flight. Now you're doing it for yourself. I think this one would be arguable with the FAA, but
That might just plain old be illegal as well.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I don't know about the rules in your state about doing this. I mean, you're just trying to find where coyotes are. So as long as you're not using it for hunting, I think there are rules about hunting stuff, but I don't know about hunting coyotes. It gets kind of a gray area, quite frankly. In that case, I would say. It's at the edge of the gray area. This is technically a recreational flight. You're going out to look for coyote, and you're not doing it for money. You're not doing it for somebody else, and you're just doing it for yourself. But then the FAA also says that if you're checking the gutters in your house, then it's not recreational. So
You're going to use that, but it depends on how you use that.
yeah, but see, that tells you kind of a little bit of how dumb that rule is, because it's not risk based. It should be based on risk. It should not be based on the type of activity that you do. But it's neither here nor there. Okay, Dave says, hey Greg, got my 107 last November, crashed the Mavic 3 when RFI caused it to go into ATTI mode. Interesting. Is there a way to simulate ATTI mode on the Mavic 3 so you can practice flying? No, you cannot. Not in the Mavic 3, unfortunately. DJI went away with the ATTI mode in the Phantom 4 Pro. I'm pretty sure that was the and then the Inspire 3, I'm pretty sure has ATTI mode as well. But the more consumer level drones, the Phantom 4 Pro was the last one that had an ATTI button. When the Mavic original came out, there was a hack that you could go through to change some of the code in there and have an ATTI mode available, but it was a bit it was a bit finicky. But that was back in the days. But no, I have not seen a drone that has ATTI mode except for the Inspire 3 lately. So foil? Well, yeah. I mean, you can put, it still uses, you can put tinfoil on top of the drone to prevent the GPS signal from getting in. ATTI mode is not all that difficult necessarily. It's designed to not hold position with the GPS. So it's going to be drifting if you have wind. That's really the bottom line. So, but I'm surprised that the RFI would cause the drone to go into ATTI mode. Sure Resource says, did you get the DJI Metris 30T? We did not get the thermal version. We got the non-thermal version. We're going to be using it for training purposes. So the non-DJI version, the non-thermal version is better, is more applicable to what we're going to do with it. From Anonymous, if Godzilla suddenly appears in Lake Tahoe and started heading to Reno, then we get footage of all that, please. And I wanted to use my drone to get it to move back into the lake. What regulation should I be concerned with? that's going to be harassing wildlife. There is, it's not an FAA regulation. I think it's from the Fish and Wildlife regulation. I don't know what the exact number is, but yeah. And then make sure that you fly under Part 107 when you do that. It's not recreational. That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it. But please get good footage. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to Reno? Sure, you call 911 when you get there.
There it is.
Is that what you were waiting for? All right. Have you heard about nearshoring in relation to DJI and the US, a backdoor around restrictive tariff restriction against Chinese product being imported into the US, including all product from DJI? I do not know what nearshoring means. So no, I have not heard of that. Sorry. Pew, pew. Next. Is there a way to override the RTH update when you lower the drone flight altitude into a hover? To override the RTH update, you can always cancel the RTH update, Ben, if that's what you're asking. There's also a way to change the behavior of RTH on most DJI drones. So you have the ability to tell it to either hover or land or just come back. But yeah. I'll get to that question in a second. Next, an OK Boomer says, I recently viewed a video of a do-it-yourself kit, the Holybro X650. Holybro, is that a real name? Assembled by Dylan Gorman. Oh, God. If its parts are made in China, will federal banning likely apply? It depends on... It's going to depend on the proposed ban that passes. There are proposed bans that are proposing any drones made of Chinese parts, of certain Chinese parts, and then some are proposing just a DJI ban. So it's going to depend. So I can't really answer that question. It's going to depend on what they decide to do. Vic says nearshoring is the U.S. Customs being jerks and not letting DJI into the country. It's happening right now. Oh, yeah, that's what that means. Okay. Then, yes, we have heard about that. Sorry, that was Star Performer's question. Have you heard about nearshoring in relationship? Yeah, absolutely. We've heard rumors that DJI drones are being blocked at port of entry and not being let into the country. So, yep. Okay, do we want to do that question from the community? I think this, so we've decided there's a question in the Pilot Institute community. If you're not familiar, it's community.pilotinstitute.com. We have like 50,000 people in the community constantly asking questions. If you're familiar with the old Facebook group that we had, it's that, but on steroids with a lot more people and a lot more topics, a lot more questions every day. And there was a good question this week about flying near the Golden Gate Bridge. So I wanted to bring up a couple of resources because this actually can be used by a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But I'm going to share my screen here so you can see if you were in the situation that this person was in our community about, is there a code on the prompter?
5500.
If you were in that situation, then you would be able to find the tools to make it happen. So I'm going to show you two things. The first thing that I would always go to is the UAS facility map, which is where the FAA has their restrictions. Now, if you go to the Golden Gate Bridge, which is this thing, can everybody see, Ethan?
Yep.
Okay. So here is the Golden Gate Bridge, and you notice that there is not really any airspace restriction from the FAA. Does that mean you can fly there automatically? No, not necessarily, because there might be land restriction, and this is actually the case here, which is why I wanted to show you this. So if we go to an FAA chart, this is a sectional chart right here of the same exact area. I'm using ForeFlight here. You don't have to use ForeFlight, but using ForeFlight, I can actually show you with my pen a couple things. And I wanted to show you this thing here, which is this little area, and if you're familiar, if you're a Part 107 pilot, if you're a Pilot Institute student, you know exactly what this is here, which is an area that you should be avoiding takeoff and landing. Now, if you look on the other shore, you notice that there is also here a bunch of little dots. I hope you can see my little marking in red. So this whole area here, and then this whole area here is a big no-no, because if we go back to the previous chart, you'll notice that here it says Golden Gate National Recreation Area. If you're not familiar with recreation areas, they're not national parks, but they're still managed by the National Park Service. If you go to the actual page, this is the Golden Gate National Recreation Area in California page, and you type in the search menu up here, you type drone, you will see drone zone. And it says here that launching, landing, operating an unmanned aircraft from or on land and water administered by the National Park Service within the boundary of the recreation area is prohibited except as approved in writing by the superintendent. So that means that in the entire area that I showed you here, that's all in red, you cannot take off and land because it is part of the National Park Service. Some have tried and getting in trouble. So please don't do that. Don't fly in those areas. You'll get in trouble. Now, you could try to take off from further distance, but obviously you have visual line of sight taking off from outside of those areas, but I don't recommend it, again, because of visual line of sight rules. Also, remember, there's a lot of traffic around this area. If I zoom out a little bit, you can see how complex this whole entire airspace here is around San Francisco. A lot of aircraft flying at a bunch of different altitudes, so just be careful. So I hope this answers the question. We'll go back to the main questions now, but I wanted to make sure you had the tools to do this. UAS facility map, always going to be the first thing you want to look at. Somebody's asking, isn't it a critical infrastructure? I don't think that it is. I think it's just a national landmark, if anything. I don't think it provides really anything like the Hoover Dam, for example. Yeah, I would say be careful. Ernest says, what is going on in the comments here? Sorry. Next, Ernest says, would using the new Mini 4 Pro to find my Autel Nano Plus that is lost in the woods not qualify as recreational? Good question. I would say just go ahead and do it. I don't think the spirit of the law was written against or for this purpose. Moi FPV says, do you guys have teachers that can provide personal assistance on submitting a waiver? Yep, we have a waiver course that we have that can help, and we have our team that can help as well. So reach out to us. Go on the website. You'll see the waiver course. We made it affordable because we wanted people to get that information. But yeah, go take a look at that. Did you see the leak about the DJI Mavic 4 today? Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely a stretch. I don't know if that's really what it is. It's a drone sitting up on top of a bunch of other cameras that looks like a new payload, that looks like it could be a Mavic 4. At least the picture that I saw. I don't know if there is more. But yeah. Yep. Black Sheep says, would you elaborate about harassing wildlife? Yeah, harassing wildlife is 50 CFR 19.11 Bravo. That's enforced by the Fish and Wildlife, and that's going to be up to them to decide what harassing wildlife is with an aircraft. But it is a real regulation, so I would be careful about doing that. Some people have gotten in trouble. As a matter of fact, I've even heard of people at national parks that were flying over national parks getting in trouble by the park rangers claiming that they were harassing wildlife and getting their stuff confiscated because of that. So, yep. What is the best herbicide sprayer drone that is not DJI? I do not know the answer to that. I don't know the answer. I'm not familiar enough with that space to be able to give you information on that. The good place to find that kind of stuff is going to trade shows like a commercial UAV expo that we were at. Yep. Okay. Engineer Drone Services says that's Minot. If thieves break into a crumble cookie at night wearing gloves and mask and abscond, can I fly recreationally and film them to hand over to the authorities? You should. Nobody should be stealing from crumble.
And that wouldn't be recreational, though. As much as we like to eat cookies.
That would technically not be recreational, but I think the FAA would agree with me on that.
We would support that. We need some more questions.
We do need some more questions. Wow, look at that. Awesome.
All caught up.
We also have Neo footage flying over people.
We'll have some Neo videos coming out and Action 5.
Nick says, you mentioned critical infrastructure. Is there a way to check if a facility is classified as a critical infrastructure? Yes. So the difficulty is this. The FAA has on the UAS facility map a list of critical infrastructures, which are, to my understanding, federally recognized critical infrastructures. Each state at the moment has the ability to define a critical infrastructure as they decide. So you have to go to your state to find the list of state-defined or state-recognized critical infrastructures that go in here. So I see people asking about links in the chat. There's no links in the live chat. That's only for us, only for our account. That's something that YouTube restricts for some reason, but there's no links in the chat. Which is better to put out a LiPo battery fire, a dry power, a class A, B, or C, or a CO2 extinguisher? So here's the deal with LiPo batteries, is that they're on a thermal runaway. They're heat-based accidents, which means that you have to cool off the battery cells. The FAA has an amazing video online, which is not a recent video, but I've been showing it to a bunch of students over the years, which shows what happens when you use a CO2 extinguisher to extinguish a LiPo battery fire or lithium fire, because those are thermal runaways, and which means that, have you ever seen these candles where you blow them and then they come back a few seconds later?
Oh, trick candles?
Those trick candles, yeah. Well, when you put out a fire using CO2, eventually the CO2 goes away, and then the fire starts again because it's a heat base. CO2 doesn't cool off the battery cells. So what you need to do is cool off the battery cells. The FAA also shows putting a whole bunch of ice on top of a battery fire like this. And what happens is that for a second it cools off the battery, but what happens is there's still a bit of oxygen in there, so it comes right back up and the fire starts to go through the ice, which is kind of amazing. So the way that the FAA shows is that you have to use a water extinguisher in order to extinguish the fire. So at one conference years and years and years ago, this is pre-2014, before I moved to Prescott, I was at a trade show, and next to our booth was a company that made devices to turn off fires inside of commercial flights. And what it was a big metal suitcase that you could, and it came with tongs, literally like cooking tongs, where they could grab an iPad, for example, put it inside of that suitcase, close it, and then use simple water bottles to fill in the enclosure with water to stop the fire and to cool off the battery right away. So a water extinguisher is going to be your best bet in order to do this. Now, over the years, I've heard people argue with me that that's not the case, that water is actually not the best way to turn off those fires. But when you understand how they work based on heat and thermal runaway, To me, water makes sense. Backed up by the FAA website, also backed up by this company that was next to me literally for 3 days during a trade show. So, yep, there are video about the battery on the Part 107 course. Correct. I've put that in there. Pew pew. Next. Super 8mm says, what software is good and not breaking the bank for post-processing of 3D models? You can use, I'm going to forget the name again, WebODM. Yeah, WebODM is free. It's a bit more cumbersome to use, but in the course, we actually, in the mapping course, we show you how to use that. Jared has a tutorial. To get started, that's how you want to do it. Roaming the Americas says, can you give a high-level overview of the latest drone bans and where they stand? I think there were different bills at different times, and I've lost track of what's happening. Yes, the latest that happened is that in the House, the Countering CCP Drones Act from Stefanik passed. The Senate version has not. So right now, it's a bit of at a standstill. We're waiting to see what happens in the Senate. But it looks like they'll have to go to committee in order to vote on what to do with that, if that even happens. The election is right around the corner, as you may know. If you don't, there's an election coming, and then there's more recess. I guess these people love to be on recess. Surprising. So yeah, we'll see what happens. That's kind of the latest, as short as I can make it. If a stadium has seating of 60,000 and an event is being held there, not NCAA, football, NFL, MLB, or NASCAR, is there a flight restriction on flying outside that stadium, not over the stadium? No. Good question. So the TFR, the stadium TFR is only in place at those events that you mentioned, and only when there is one of those events. So outside of that, if it's a concert, there's technically no TFR. Now, there could be an individual TFR, not a stadium TFR, but an event TFR, if you want to call it that, for that specific event. But the stadium TFR would not apply in this case. So, yep. Is the drone ban bipartisan, or is it one party involved? It is bipartisan. It's a bit more on one side than the other, but it is surprisingly somewhat bipartisan. X-Wing says, have you built an FPV drone, and if so, which one? We have built several FPV drones. We have a whole collection back there. We even have a course on how to do that on the website, and yeah, we've built a couple of them. Do you have any prep course for renewal Part 107 testing? TG, you can go on the FAA website to do that now. So you don't need to take a course. Well, you do need to take the FAA course, but not. But yeah, you can do it directly. ALC 677. I'm sure Jason will put a link down in the description for that. I'll put it right now so you can see it. There you go. That's what you want to. That's what you want to do. Did my link show up on that chat? It should be right after Jeff. No, it should be live, right after Jeff Norman. Because I've been putting links in the chat, but it looks like if there is no, because I'm using my private account. I guess it's. I guess it's not going through. So every time I've been posting links, I guess they don't show up either, because I'm not logged in with the.
I've seen you post links before. You must have been on the private.
Yeah, on the PI account. Anyways, Jason just put it in.
Yep. There we go.
Sparky. Mr. S. Does the DJI app contact military base towers when it asks you to type in the phone number? Does the DJI app contact military base tower when no? Currently having this discussion in a drone group. I do not think so. The DJI app, really, they're just, I mean, it's CYA. It's what it is, the DJI app. It's to cover DJI's assets. But it's not for you to get approval legally. So no, they don't. They just want to make sure that you're supposed to be flying in that area. So my answer is going to be no, unless there's something that I don't know. But my answer is going to be no. Drone My Place Sensei says, how do you all prevent kids from focusing on drones during shoots? Should I toss candy on the ground? That's a good question. I don't know. My kids just look at the drone at all times when I fly with them. So drop stuff from the drone. Yeah, candy, I guess.
If you were to drop candy, what is your choice of candy for
Yeah,
candy
what
that you would drop?
what kind of candy would you drop? I mean, chocolate bars. That's the only answer.
Nestle's?
Twix,
Chocolate bars?
Twix, no Hershey's. That's not chocolate. Maybe, no, nothing with peanut butter.
What are your kids most excited to get for
Twix is really the answer. Twix, Mars,
Oh, what about Snickers and Baby Ruth?
Snickers, yeah, 100 grand. How about what's the one with the almond in it? The Almond Joy. Yeah, those are pretty darn good.
I like the lion bars that you
The Lion bars, yeah. If you were in Europe, you'd get Lion bars. Those are pretty badass set. Abazaba. I don't know what Abazaba is. Yeah, that's why. Okay. Is the drone meetup still in November? Yes, it is. Any agenda or details? You can go on their website. They have a website. I don't know what the website is, top of my head, but yes, the drone meetup is still on. It's the weekend of November 11th. So I think 9th through 11th, I think is the meetup. But yeah, we'll be out there. It's going to be fun. I'm excited. Dump a bag of gummies on the ground. Make it challenging to pick up while you're filming the event. Yeah, I agree. Fly higher, maybe. Thanks for all the help. Passed my 107 last Friday. Thanks, Greg and team. Awesome, Corey. Great to hear. Love it. It is high time that Godzilla shows up. I agree. All right. 447. LiPo fire extinguisher, 10 gallons of sand. Sand will technically do it. I think it will cool off the batteries. That's another option, I think, with sand. But yeah, sand is a good way to at least contain the fire at the beginning. I don't know what a LiPo fire extinguisher is. I don't know what's in it to cool off the batteries. Sparky says, I knew the answer. I just needed to type it out loud before I bash my head into the wall. Yep. What app do you use to put on your Mac? What app do you use to put on your Mac? I don't know what that means. What app for what, I guess is the question. I got a bazillion apps on my Mac. DJI Fly is not supported by iPhone. No, it is. DJI Fly is definitely on iPhone. It's not on Android, but it is definitely on iPhone. Okay, what else? Practicing photography says, I used to fly RC planes and had to be careful not to fly if someone had the same frequency on my radio. What is the chance of that happening with drones? Not nearly as much anymore. It used to be an issue in the past, but yeah. We're always careful when we fly FPV and we fly DJI drones around FPV because you can zap somebody out of the sky with their FPV if you're not careful. Regarding the drone ban, Keith, alien drones, I heard that there's some investigation into Anzu. Any updates? No updates. We reported on that 3 weeks ago, I think. There was a letter from some people. I don't know if they were Congress people or representative. I'm not sure what stature they had, but the idea was they were asking a lot of questions of Anzu about their operation. That's really where it's at. We were told that Anzu would reply. That's all we've heard so far. But yeah, just them looking into Anzu basically, because Anzu is awesome. Tavin says, when is the CFI course coming out? 2025 for sure. I don't have a good deadline. We have a couple courses we're working on the airplane side right now, a couple courses on the drone side. CFI is a big course. We're redoing the private pilot right now, which is going to look amazing, but it's taking a while to do that because we want to do it right. So definitely 2025. We also have a move to the new building at one point this year in 2024, hopefully. We had a bit of a delay with some issues inside the building. by the end of this week, I should know a bit more about a timeline. It looks like we're still good for this year, I hope, because I want to get out of this building. But we'll see what happens.
Don't take any more vacation, Greg.
I don't think me taking vacation had anything to do with the delay, unfortunately.
Slow us down here.
Well, fortunately. Is Greg married? Yes, Greg is married. Sorry, taken already.
For how many years? Oh,
For how many years? 10 years.
oh, good job.
Well, 11 years this year.
Okay.
When is your anniversary?
No.
It's in April. I know when it is. My anniversary is the easiest one to remember. You know what it is. See, everybody knows what it is because it's very easy to remember. It's on April.
April
Towards the end of April. No, towards the end of April. But yes, I have been married happily for 11 years now with an awesome wife. Why can't I download air data app on my Autel RC? Ooh, does the Autel RC allow to download outside apps? I don't know. I don't remember. There's just too many RCs for me to remember all of it. It may be the case like the DJI RC, the non-pro version, where it doesn't allow you to install apps. But if it does, then I don't know. I'm not sure. Ben says, my question was overlooked. Ben, sorry about that. Jason out there has a ton of questions to go through. So just put it again in the chat. We'll answer it. Scott says, casket removal delays. No, the casket is gone. The casket is... We voted out of the island. So it's it's gone. Bye-bye. Back to Crumble. If I am just trying to get my cookie back, is that recreational? Yes, it is. Can you overlook the RTH update when at low altitude hover? We answered that question, Ben, earlier. The answer is you can override RTH at any time, but I don't know what you mean by RTH update when you're flying at low altitude. Maybe you can expand a little bit on the situation that you're in. Okay, Boomer says, when photogrammetry data is collected by the DSP, what are the 3 most common client-side software application to view the models, assess volumetric and of aggregates, and check dimensions? 3 best clients to view the models. Well, most software that processes the data has the ability to also allow the client to view. So it's going to depend on what you want to use.
I think when you're done with this question.
Yeah. So that I would say look at, I don't know that I can give you 3 software at the top of my head right now, but we do talk about this in the videography course.
When you get into landing mode, your RTH will reset home point.
When you get into landing mode, oh, it resets. That's right. You land and it resets the RTH point.
Correct.
Yeah.
Change that to controller in the settings.
You can change that to controller. Yeah. I see. Okay. I'm sorry, Ben. I know what you're saying now. Yes. So what Ben is asking is, can you override the RTH update when at low altitude hover? So I think what you mean is that when you bring the aircraft somewhere else, land it, and then take off again, it resets the RTH home point to that location specifically. You can change that in the controller to update the RTH point to the controller itself, which would reset it to where you are standing at the moment, and then it would go there. I am not aware of an option to turn that option off, to turn that setting off that makes it happen in the first place. So I hope that answers the question. Yeah, I see that. Yeah. But I've never seen it do it at low altitude. I've always seen it when you land, not when you're just hovering at low altitude. So, yeah. Which drone is that, Ben? Out of curiosity, I'd like to test it. Yeah. Chuck says, if someone has a learning disability, are there any options for getting a Part 107? The FAA and PSI, which is the testing provider, have options to help some test takers with a few things, but it's not as much help as you would think. It's someone that can read the question for you, but they're not allowed to obviously help you with anything. Not that they would know anything about Part 107 in the first place, but there is a section where you can request special accommodations during your test. Bad Art says, why did DJI discontinue the flight simulator on the RC controller? I have no information on that, unfortunately. Not sure. Tavin says, I love the course so much. I'm sorry for another airplane question. No problem. Airplane questions are welcome as well. But I promise the last one, is there any chance you can add a Checkride prep section to each course? So we have a Checkride course available. We are adding more Checkride stuff for instrument and commercial to that Checkride course. Coming soon, probably early next year. So, but yeah, right now it is mostly focused on private pilot, but we're adding more in there. Drone My Place Census says, I charge a premium for invited events, shoots that aren't agreed upon ahead of time. Does that sound reasonable? I've done it for years. I charge a premium for invited event shoots that aren't agreed upon. I don't know what that means. What's invited event? Invited event.
They're getting commercial work, but they didn't agree on a price before they got there.
Invited event shoots that aren't agreed upon. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it's worked this whole time, I would say don't change something that works, right? Yep. Dwight says, do you know anything about the most recent update? My Mini 4 Pro now shows it is flying at 88 miles an hour. Tailwind? I don't think any DJI drones flies this quickly. Sparky says, where did I put my car keys? Probably in the fridge. Well, if he was in the office, he would get a different answer, but we are live on air, so because the answer would be, did you check up your fridge? Joe says, will anytime anybody says, where is this in the office? The answer is in the fridge, up your fridge. Will Pilot Institute be attending Oshkosh next year? Yes, absolutely. We will be. We are committed to Oshkosh every year going forward. If the DJI ban goes through, will we still be able to purchase accessories like replacement batteries? Ooh, good question. Batteries are, well, so the proposed ban, most of the ones we've seen are based on FCC approval. Batteries don't have FCC approval, I don't think, because they don't use airwaves. So you should be able to still find replacement batteries. With that said, all of the proposed bans that we've seen are based on future drones, not current drones. So it should not affect anything related to that. Okay, Drone My Place Census says, the Chamber of Commerce asked me to come out. I shoot and they love what I capture. Instead of the basic rate package, I add a premium since it wasn't planned and now it's so desirable. Yeah, that's one way of doing it. That's one way of doing it. Yeah.
I'm sure it kind of depends on if you really want to create a good review.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, of course, you got to see how the customer looks at it. You know, are you milking them? Is that how it's perceived for them? You've done the work, now you apply something different. But yeah, if they ask you to come out, you should always come out with a pre-agreed price. Let's put it this way. DJI has a flight simulator on the DJI Fly app. Thank you for mentioning that. What are your thoughts on AI and planes flying fully on autopilot, just like drones that will be proven to be safer than humans? Well, that means all pilot drone jobs will go away in the future. Yeah, I think we're a long ways away from that. For many, many reasons. I think on the drone side, we're still ways away from that, mostly, and on the airplane side, mostly because of the FAA. I don't see the FAA allowing autonomous flights anytime soon, with no pilots, with no one in control of anything. On the commercial side of things, I've always said that eventually we will have airplanes that are remotely piloted, commercial airplanes that are remotely piloted. We'll go from 2 pilots we have now to 1 pilot in the cockpit, to 1 pilot on the ground in charge of an airplane, to 1 pilot on the ground in charge of multiple airplanes. I've been saying this for over a decade, well over a decade now. People think I'm crazy, but I think it's a generational thing. I think my kids and my grandkids won't have a problem getting on a plane that doesn't have a pilot in the airplane, just like we don't have a problem getting on a train that doesn't have a pilot in it, that's fully automated. Now you're going to say, yeah, it's 2-dimension and it's a lot easier to be on rails than it is to be, in there. Ask your grandparents if they would have gotten into a car that doesn't have anybody driving it. You can do that today in Phoenix and San Diego, I think, with the Waymo cars. Well, where's Long Island? So yeah, I would say it will happen. I don't know if it's going to be in my generation that we will see no pilots in the cockpit, but my kids' generation, I can certainly see that. And then, yeah, we'll see. I won't be here to say that I was right or wrong, but we'll find out.
Real quick, Air 3 or Mini 4?
Air 3 or Mini 4, or Air 3, anytime. Cool. All right. 5:02. It is time to end it. Thank you all for watching as always. We will be here on Friday for the news update, and then we will be here on Friday night for the community as well. If you're not part of the community, go check it out. It's pretty darn cool. And then you can ask cool questions, and then maybe it gets picked for next Monday, where we can answer that question live for everyone. But yeah, that's it. Thanks again. We will see you guys at the end of the week. You have a great week and fly safely. Bye-bye.